Let's imagine the worst happens. A disaster strikes. The ground shakes, the waters rise, and in that chaos, the very first thing to go is our connection to the world. So today, we're going to look at a brand new protocol that's designed to build a network that just won't go down, even when everything else already has.
Picture it. A massive earthquake hits. The shaking finally stops, but now there's this terrifying silence. You grab your phone, to call for help, check on loved ones, but there's nothing. No signal. The cell towers are gone. And just like that, your phone, your lifeline, has become what they call a digital island. And that, right there, is the heart of the problem. We've all got these supercomputers in our pockets, right? But they are 100% dependent on this fragile, centralized physical infrastructure. The second those towers fall, we're all cut off. And that's the crazy paradox, isn't it? The single greatest strength of your phone, its connection to everything, instantly becomes its biggest weakness. It becomes a useless brick at the exact moment you need it the most. This isn't just some inconvenience. In a disaster, this is a life-or-death problem.
Now, you might be thinking, hey, haven't people tried to solve this already? And you're right, they have. There have been attempts at offline networks before, but they've all slammed into the same roadblocks. So why didn't they work? Let's dig in.
Well, it really boils down to two huge problems: people being selfish and the networks being slow. First, selfishness. Older networks just assumed that everyone would be a good Samaritan and use their phone's battery to pass along messages for total strangers. But think about it. In a real crisis, your phone's battery is everything, so people hoard it. They become what researchers call selfish nodes. Then there's the speed problem. The old model was something called store, carry, forward. It's basically a digital bucket brigade, where a message gets passed from phone to phone to phone. I mean, it can take hours for a single message to get across a disaster zone, and that's just way too slow when lives are on the line.
So that's the big puzzle, right? How in the world do you build a network that's not only lightning fast, but also gives people a real reason to help each other out? The answer, it turns out, requires a totally new way of thinking.
And this is where our solution for today comes into the picture. It's called HGRD, and its real genius is in its clever hybrid design. It's a system that's actually aware of its surroundings and adapts on the fly. So what is HGRD exactly? Well, you can think of it as a protocol that turns every single phone in the area into a smart player in the game. Your device can send a message, it can act as a relay for someone else's message, or, and this part is absolutely crucial, it can become a gateway to the internet if it finds a signal. It basically creates this fluid, intelligent web that's always looking for the quickest and easiest way out.
It's easiest to understand if we break it down into three simple layers. First, you have the offline node. That's your phone, stuck in the disaster zone, just using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to search for any other phones nearby. Then, you've got the gateway node. This is the lucky phone that finds a little bit of internet, maybe a flickering LTE signal or a satellite link. And finally, there's the cloud core. That's the global brain of the operation that grabs the message from the gateway and zips it off to where it needs to go.
Okay, so how does HGRD actually fix those two huge problems we talked about, the speed and the selfishness? Well, it's got two really clever innovations. You can kind of think of them as its superpowers. The first superpower is something called smart wormholes. Instead of that slow phone-to-phone hopping, HGRD is constantly hunting for one of those gateway nodes. The moment it finds one, it uses that phone's internet connection like a wormhole to just bypass the entire digital traffic jam and instantly jump the message out of the disaster area and straight to the cloud. And just look at the difference this makes. It's incredible. On one of those old networks, a message could take around 145 minutes to get out. With HGRD and its smart wormhole, that same message is delivered in under 45 seconds. I mean, that is literally the difference between a message arriving too late and a message that could save someone's life. Okay, so that handles the speed problem. But what about the selfish node problem? That's where the second superpower comes in. HGRD doesn't rely on charity. It literally pays you to help. It creates a tiny little microeconomy that gives everyone an incentive to participate, turning those battery hoarders into active, helpful parts of the network. And how does it do that? With a really smart mechanism called proof of relay. You can think of it like a digital receipt. Every time your phone helps pass a message along, it gets a secure cryptographic stamp that proves it did the work. Those stamps then earn you a tiny payment in a special crypto token. It's a completely secure and verifiable way to reward cooperation. And here's how that reward gets divvied up.
The gateway node, the phone providing that super valuable internet connection, gets the biggest piece of the pie, about 60%. And then the other 40% is split between all the other phones that helped relay the message to get it there. So everybody who helps gets a cut.
All right, so this all sounds amazing on paper, but does it actually work in the real world? Well, let's take a look at the performance data from the simulations because the results are, well, they're pretty mind-blowing. First up, a 99.8% delivery success rate. Let that sink in for a second. In the middle of a chaotic, broken environment, it's almost perfectly reliable. Your message is gonna get through. Second, that speed we talked about, the end-to-end latency is less than 45 seconds. So that confirms it. It's not just reliable, it is blazing fast.
And finally, and this is a big one, remember that whole battery problem, the reason people were selfish in the first place? Well, HGRD is 3.5 times more battery efficient than the older protocols. It's smart about how it routes messages, which means it saves that precious battery life, solving the very problem that doomed earlier networks.
And this quote just sums up the whole philosophy perfectly. The goal isn't to try and build indestructible cell towers. The goal is to create a smart, decentralized network that adapts, reroutes, and just heals itself, almost like it's a living thing.
HGRD is really more than just a piece of disaster tech. It's a whole new blueprint for cooperation. And it really makes you wonder, right? What other huge challenges could we tackle if we found clever ways to incentivize individuals to work together for the common good? Think about communication in remote areas or in developing nations with spotty infrastructure. This is a potential game changer. Thanks so much for tuning in.